Okay, it is 9:42 a.m. and this might be the first trade that I had here with in mind $15 risk level with ILUS, and this was a morning panic bounce play. It had a drop from the 12.6 as low as 12, so I guess maybe the drop wasn't even that much, but I just didn't like the way this one ultimately traded. I did like the fact that the volume was fading for this potential morning panic bounce play, and it was playing off of this 12 level. But I eventually got out of the trade because even though the volume was fading, which makes it more likely that it can try to turn around, I never liked how the bid never really stacked up and it never caught up with the price action. And I didn't like how there were so many sellers here at the ask. This is like a very big wall of sellers at 12.29 that has been sitting here for a while. And then there's another big seller at 12.3, and it just isn't good if maybe the volume is fading, so then maybe the panicking is going to stop and it could try to turn around. But if at the same time there is a lot of people at the ask with a lot of size, it just kills a lot of my confidence that this thing can actually try to do something. And yeah, it looks like it's now a leg lower at 12.1 at the bid. Let's see if anybody is going to take it. I was in at 9.38, which was right here, and I was in at 12.16 for that potential, morning panic bounce play, and it did not work. You can see it now breaking down, but I was in the setup. It could have worked out, and I did get out at 9:41, which was right here at 12:15. So I lost a tiny amount. I traded 7,000 shares. I think it was like an 800 something dollar position. Worst case scenario, if it were to have broken and look like it's gonna break 12, I would be out of the trade. It didn't get that low, at least when I was in the trade, but I gave it some time. I didn't like the sellers at the ask, and I got out for that reason. This thing can still try to turn around, maybe play off of a lower level, but I will be less interested in trading it at that point. And yeah, this was just a failed morning panic bounce play. Not a huge surprise because I guess the drop wasn't that significant, and there were a lot of sellers at the ask. It just didn't really work out here. I probably lost a very tiny amount, even if I traded an $800 position because of the difference right there. I'll make an update to see what this one does. That was about it. I haven't really seen anything else that was looking nice for a potential setup. I'll keep looking for setups, but that's all that I have for right now. Alright, it is 9:53 and ILUS did fail. It did downtrend. It broke the 12 cent level and you can see a million shares was dumped. I just tried it again for another trade, but I got out of it actually rather quickly because there was a lot of people at the ask. But to my surprise, they're actually being taken out. So maybe this thing can ultimately uptrend for a lot more, and I missed out in that sense. But I don't mind it because I thought it was going to be the same pattern in that it downtrended and then it looks like it's trying to work itself, but then the sellers at the ask are not taken out, and the thing just goes and makes another leg down. But this time is actually, oh well, it's kind of trying to uptrend. You see, that's the price action I don't like. Just a bunch of people that keep jumping in at the ask. Clearly, somebody potentially still has a bunch of shares to sell after it broke 12 cents and they didn't get everything out. They're trying to maybe sell into this move right here. But I did try again at 9:52, and I think I'm going to just take a step back in my trading. I don't want to overtrade on my first day that I'm trying to trade a $15 risk level, but I was in at 9:52 at 11.82 because it looked good. The price action, it looked like it was going to turn around. We have a bottom here, 11.7. I'm going to get out of the trade if we break 11.7, but worst case scenario, I'm out at 11 flat because maybe it continues with another big panic. And that would equal to, with the 2,000 shares that I traded here, roughly $15 risk level. I think it would be like a $16 loss, actually, but it would have been pretty close to 15, and that would include slippage. So I was in it for that reason, but I got out actually the next minute rather quickly at 11.84 because as you can see with the price action previously, a whole bunch of sellers just came back and it looked like it was starting to choke, right, and not really let it, move. The ideal level would be if it were to try to break 11.9 and maybe try to come back to 12. This could be the thing where it breaks under 12, it causes a lot of panic, and then it starts to cash itself, and then it gets back above 12. But, you know, I didn't have the confidence to hold um, much longer after I bought because of the sellers that kept showing up at the ask. But This thing can totally try to do it, especially if they just lift up the level 2. We have a big bidder at 11.87, so we'll see, but I just don't like how it just has these walls of sellers. Let's see if it gets to 11.9. Another seller jumped in at 11.88. At least nobody's trying to immediately dump all their shares at this 11.87 person the moment it shows up, so let's see if it hits 11.9 and if it can break past it. Another seller jumps in. It can do it, but this isn't the way I would like it to do it, you know? We have hidden size at 11.88. I mean, that's like 100,000 shares, 150,000 shares. Somebody's hiding a bunch of size. It does look like an ascending triangle, so I don't mind not being a part of this, but it is interesting to see if it's going to try to do it. And because it is a 12-cent stock, there could be short sellers, but I don't think there's that many, but it is at least above 1 cent, so and another seller jumps in at 11.88. I'll make an update to see if this one ultimately tries to come back to 12. It can do it. I just don't like the way it would get there again with all of this amount of sellers at the ask, and yeah, I'll make an update later. Okay, it is 10:04 and I want to record this. As you can see, there's a 800,000 share seller at 11.8. It might actually be an actual size, or maybe it's actually larger than this. And then we have another 420,000 share seller at 12. This is why it was not able to work when it was around here at 12 and why it wasn't able to work at 11.8. Somebody clearly has a lot of shares to sell, and they were just not letting it breathe. It wasn't letting this spike up, maybe make a move towards VWAP. It didn't let this one right here work out because somebody's just trying to sell a bunch of shares. And now it's at 11.6. Sure, it can ultimately reverse, and maybe I'll be interested in it if it keeps downtrending, and then at some point, potentially around 11 a.m., maybe it does that 11 a.m. reversal setup, but as of right now, I'm not really interested in it that much, and it's not really down that much for me to consider potentially something like that anyway, but I just wanted to record that, you know, it could have worked out, but obviously it didn't in this case because there are some large sellers, and I'm not going to be interested in trying to trade this anymore. As for the other setups, this one has no volume. It's nothing I really want to trade. CYBL isn't really doing anything, but maybe if it tries to break this 21 level convincingly and it doesn't have like a spread, maybe it could do something cool, but it's not at a very significant point on the daily chart, so it wouldn't really be the best setup. ABML keeps downtrending, no first green day setup unless maybe it develops later. I don't like how IGEX had a gap up, a small gap up from the other day, so you know, I'm not too interested in this one if it were to have broken maybe this 80 sub penny level for that reason. And TGGI, I mean, maybe if it tries to break the previous high, which was at, I guess, that 15.5 level, which would be pretty close to the high of this day, maybe it could be something cool, but I don't see a lot of price action going on, and there's a big seller. It could try to do something later, but as of right now, I don't see any setups, and I think that's totally fine. And I don't think I'm going to try ILUS anymore, even if it ultimately turns around at some point. I'm just going to sit back and watch and learn from the price action. Alright, it is 10:26, and I had a verified cancel with ABML, and that was right here at 10:25. I placed an order right when it started to transition from this 107 to 108 level. 107 and 108 is right here, and I was interested in it because it's been downtrending. It had a little attempt to uptrend here on the daily chart, and then it came back down. And now at any point it can make like a first green day and try to reverse, maybe even the head of an inverse head and shoulders here. So I saw this trading back and forth, and there were like two large sellers at 107. There was one with like 24,000 shares and another one with like 14,000 shares. And I try to wait until the very end where it looks like it's going to do it and break out. And I was a bit slow because I didn't get in at 107. It transitioned from 107 to 108. But my order was sitting here at the bid with 500 shares. And I didn't like how we just broke the 107 level and now we're at 107 by 108. And we have another humongous wall of sellers. So that was really not ideal. If it wasn't maybe that large of a wall of sellers, I would probably still have my order sitting here at the bid, and maybe I would have been in by now at 107. But this thing could totally make a move. I just don't like it because it has a lot of sellers at the ask. So this was an attempted setup. It didn't work out, and that I didn't get in at the point I wanted it to be. But even if I were to have been in, I might have considered selling right now for break even because I just don't like how there is a lot of sellers here at 108, and it doesn't seem like we have a lot of people that are, fighting it. So that's the case with that. ILUS did actually uptrend eventually. I don't mind it. Obviously, maybe a little salty that I wasn't a part of the ultimate turnaround, but this one was fine, and as you can see, the big seller is a bit smaller, I believe, but it's still there at 12 cents, and that's why it's been struggling here ever since. But the very large seller at 11.8 got wiped out, as you can see right here. This is when he, had his 800, I guess almost 900,000 shares taken out, and that's what caused the move right here. It did ultimately get to VWAP, but here's the thing, even if I were to have been in at 11.65, so let's just say 11.7 with 2,000 shares, if I were to have sold at 11.9, I would have made $4. That's not very much. It didn't do very well again because there were these large sellers at the ask, and they had one freaky little dip right here at some point, and it can totally try to break VWAP. But at this point, I would have liked to have been in at 11.7 or maybe 11.65. So I don't mind missing it for that reason. It just wasn't ideal, but it did make a move towards the upside, which means at least the pattern is still there. I did have an interest with CYBL when it looks like it was trying to break this 21 level, but it rejected. There were too many sellers at the ask, but that one was something I was looking at. Yeah, this just doesn't look strong. And then my fear would be that it would take out 107 and then 106 isn't as strong as it used to be and it panics more. But I'll probably start to work on other things at this point and I'll make an update later, maybe when the market is closed. Unless I happen to trade something else in the meantime, but I'm going to start working on other stuff. It looks like it's trying to break 108, but it's just a large seller. I'll make an update later, not right now, unless I happen to trade something pretty soon, but yeah, nothing really ideal today, which is fine, but at least I traded the best that I could. Right, it is 10:14 p.m. and I am here to call it off. Overall, I am down on the day. Let me just make sure. 30 pennies. I'm down 30 pennies on the day, and I was trading two scratches here with ILUS. Both of the times that I tried it, it did not work out. I tried it here, and I also tried it here. It did do an ultimate turnaround, and I don't mind missing it too much because there were those two big sellers at the ask, but hey, it did get as high as 12, and maybe that isn't the best range, but at least the pattern, just looking at the chart, worked out, and that played out. There wasn't really anything else afterwards, and I am kind of salty with ABML. As you can see, it closed as high as 116, and I had the overall idea in mind that maybe it could be a first green day and it can try to uptrend and be the head of an inverse head and shoulder, and then the head right here and maybe make a move towards the 130s. It did it pretty nicely. I don't know if I would have been filled if I left my order sitting, but I just wasn't comfortable with the big sellers at the ask. But maybe I just have to take into consideration that this was like a longer term idea and it was already building itself. Pretty good overall that I tried it at least, and it looks like a lot of the moves that it did was, I guess, with big volume spikes, right? And people would just buy it up, and Yeah, it made a really nice move. In theory, because hindsight is 2020, perhaps if I were to have been at this level right here, maybe, I don't know, maybe a trend line from the corner here to the bottom of that candle here, and then I would have been out, not taking the big picture in mind. Maybe I would have sold at 109 and I would have made, I think, $10. Let me just make sure. I would have been in at 107, 535, and then I would have been out at 109. Yeah, it would have been up $10. And then it did downtrend. I did see this on my work laptop when I was in a garage filling a bunch of orders, but the way it kind of went to the level was very hard for me to have been in that it dropped and it hit the bid at 107, and then somebody immediately bought it back up, and it didn't really get back to that 107 level. And it did continue to do a follow-up breakout at 110, and this was pretty nice, and that would have been a pretty cool sell into the 112 level very easily, and it even got stronger towards the end of the day, which is pretty nice. And let's just see what a sell at maybe 112 would have been. So 107 again is 535, and a sell at 112, that would be 25 bucks. And that is, pretty cool. And yeah, it's my first day trading with a $15 risk level, two scratches, only down 30 pennies. But in theory, this setup was something profitable. I could have made $10 from this trade, 25, or maybe perhaps 35 or something like that, towards the end of the day. But I wouldn't have held this long, really. I would have definitely been pretty happy selling here. At least I was on the right track. The setup did play out. And yeah, that's really about it. IGEX did break the 80 level, and it did like come back, and offer dips, but I don't like the way this one trades, especially because it's a sub penny. And yeah, that's really about it. Not ILUS, but CYBO could be a morning panic bounce play if it makes like a big red candle, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna really do that. That's about it. Again, two scratches and a pretty good setup with ABML first day. Trading with a $15 risk level. I'm pretty thankful to God, and God willing, I can continue and maybe get some winning trades. That would be pretty nice.